right? TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. I'm a life coach and business strategist and have all these titles, but everybody always asks me to speak on goals or on quote unquote time management. And I said, well, I don't believe in time management. What? Well, you can't manage time, right? Have you ever tried to manage time? I mean, God can manage time. I can't manage time. So it's choice management. So I'm honored that you chose to be here today. And honestly, my prayer is that when we are done, you will say, I invested my time, not that you spent it. And that's our goal for today. So I'm just here to tell you my story. I love that Ken told the story to introduce me, because that is, to me, the greatest place where we learn our lessons. We've had the incredible privilege of meeting so many of the ministries at Bethel and being poured into, but also hearing their stories. And there's always a lesson in a story, isn't there? Every one of you I could bring up here and I would talk to you and interview you, and we would pull amazing lessons out of your story. And so that's where I'm going to go today. I'm just going to tell you my story, and within that, there are some pretty neat lessons. And what's been cool is, out of 20 years, over 2 decades of pouring into people, working with people, you know, everyone in a continuum of CEOs to the least of these, there's common denominators that we all have in our stories. And so I think that you, at some point, may intersect with my story at some level. And so I'm just going to take you back. I won't go back to the day I was born. But actually, there is a story that ties into this, the day I was born. But I'm going to go back about 22 years. And it was a day that changed my life forever. Have you guys ever had one of those days? Anybody in the room had a day? Like you're going along when Bryson was born, right? That was a day that changed your life forever. You're going along, maybe somebody gave you the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, right? That book. And then boom, that day comes, and there was nothing that quite prepared you for that day. It's the most wonderful day when a child enters your life that you get to love, and they get to show you wonder. It's an awesome day. At the other end of the spectrum, there's those days that change our life forever. Anyone in the room have the word cancer spoken over you or a family member? Yeah, it's usually at least half the room, or heart attack. You know, those days change your life forever. You just don't look at life the same. And then at the far end of the spectrum was the day that changed my life forever. And it was the day I heard the words, Kelly and the baby died last night. And what I was being told is that my 31-year-old friend, who was 9 months pregnant, had had an aortic aneurysm. And we lost her and her baby. A few days later, I went to her funeral, and we saw her baby for the first time lying in the casket next to her. She was full term. She was beautiful. She just looked like she was sleeping. And her daddy wanted people to see how pretty his baby was. And let me tell you something, if that doesn't get you on your knees, I don't know what will. And what I want to share with you at this time, just like that spectrum that I just talked about in life, there was a spectrum of faith that I had been living on, a continuum of faith. And at this time in my life, I would have walked out of the room had anything been said specific to Christianity or Jesus or faith. So if any of you are here, you know, we hear this Bethel talk, my faith is going to intersect this talk because I cannot separate it. But I want you to know I honor where you are in your journey. Because that's what I needed in my life. See, when I was a little girl, I had childlike faith, this radical, amazing relationship with the Lord, to the point that when my mom finally went to church to find out who this Jesus was that they had never introduced me to through formal religion or church, she goes for months, and then she comes home one day and she says to me, "How was your day, honey?" And I say to her, "Mommy." She said, "What?" I said, "You have Jesus in your heart." And she said, "How do you know that?" That day she had accepted the invitation to knock on her door of her heart. And I said, "Because I see him in your eyes." Like, that's the kind of faith I have. But as I grew up, I started to look to other people for faith. So when they fell, so did I. And I fell, and I fell, and I fell, and I fell. So the day Kelly died, and I was at that funeral, I was at the lowest point of my life when I got home on my knees. Got further down, right? The solution is to get lower and lower. And I got on my knees and went, what do you want me to do with this? If you are real, if you're the God I believed in as a child, please prove it to me. I need you. And I went from angry to desperate. Like, please prove it. And as I got up off my knees, I knew just a couple of things in that moment. Number one, I heard the words pure hope. My name, Kathrine, means pure, and my middle name, Nadine, means hope.
Wow.
And I knew at that moment I was seen. But I also knew that there was a calling on my life that was sacred, and it was personal. And I had come to learn in 22 years of walking with him that all of us were designed from the beginning of time with a purpose in mind. All of us. And so I hear pure hope. All I know is I'm seen, and there's something sacred. I say, okay, God. I also knew at that moment that it was time to believe in miracles again. Starting with the one in the mirror. Not because of who I saw in the mirror, but all of a sudden I saw Jesus in my own eyes.
Wow.
And we're all made in the image of God, so we are miraculous. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm serious, you guys. This morning, you got up. Did you tell your heart to beat? Did you tell your lungs to breathe? Did you tell your feet, take a step, take another step, take another step, reach for the car hand? No. Your brain and your body is working for you in a miraculous way. And what the counterfeit enemy wants to tell you is to tell you your lack instead of your worth. And so I began to go, okay, what would it be like to believe in miracles again? What would it be like? And I really didn't know. But what I did know is I remembered a scripture, seek and you will find. And that's what I was doing. And I said, okay, I'm going to live expectantly, but please prove you're real. And he has been a show-off ever since. I mean, God is a show-off, right? So, I mean, today, I'm driving here. Look at nature. None of us were without it. He is showing off, wooing us, drawing us in all the time. But we don't live expectantly. We don't open our eyes just to open my eyes to see what you're doing in me, the miraculous around me. And so I began to, walk in this amazing place in my life, just seeking him. What is that? Getting in his word to know what he would have to say to me, who he was, what his character was. Instead of looking at other people, I believe radically in community, but we cannot hang our eternity on community. And so awesome. I just began to seek him and then be loved on and love community, and then seek him and be loved on and love community. And amazing things happen, one of which is part of the ironic weaving of the story here. A friend of mine, I was looking for a way to be home with my kids, because when someone dies, especially shockingly and young, you all of a sudden realize how short life is. See, the day before Kelly died, life wasn't any shorter. I just didn't realize how quickly it could go, and I didn't realize how precious it was. And then she died. And then I thought, what do I want? What do I want out of life? What was I here for? That's the pure hope, like that calling. But what also do I want? And I began just to put that before God. Give me the desires of my heart. Show me what they are. And what's interesting is one of my desires was to be home with my kids. Even though I felt like that there was a greater calling, I felt this radical, that's my first ministry. And that I needed to just pay attention to that place and honor that, and that God would bring provision. And ironically, he did it through fruits and vegetables in a capsule. That's the intersection of our lives and how we were met. And so I started this, do you eat enough fruits and vegetables? No, do you? And just for people that didn't, bridging the gap, and all of a sudden I could be home with my kids. See, having lifestyle is simply having options. And that's what I started to realize, that having options is a powerful thing. And so I was like, okay, I have the option to stay home. I have the option for nutrition. I've got these. What else, God, could you have for me? And he started giving success in many different areas of life. And that platform of Jews Plus, I'd speak for them. And then, somebody in the audience would say, hey, will you come speak for our corporation or our church? And, it was people like Disney and DirecTV. And, that was favor. There was no reason whatsoever I should get those platforms at all. Except that each day I was getting up and say, what do you have for me today? Where do you want me to go? Where do you want me to be? Who do you want me to see? What do you want me to say? When do you want me to be quiet? It was just kind of a daily thing for me. And it grew over time, certainly never perfect. You need to know that. But what I want to tell you is, there just became more and more blessing. My husband and I were like this. You've done this. What do you want us to do with it? You have done this. What do you want us to do with it? And we were constantly checking in. Because there's this continuum in the church about poor and wealth and, this, right. Is it okay? And I remember at one point going, God, is this okay? Like, is it okay that we buy this house? We were constantly checking. We believed in the biblical way of finances. We were living that. And yet, I just always wanted to hold it like this. And so, as we did, we just began to consistently see what maybe God was doing. And what I realized in working with people is there's 3 aspects that kind of drive us at one level or another. One is making sure that we meet our needs. The second is having a lifestyle. That's our wants and desires. And the third is leaving a legacy. So like if you walked in here this morning and you were hungry because you hadn't eaten yet, boy, did they take care of you. They met that need. But had there not been food and you had not eaten breakfast, at some point today, the need of your hunger would have been made known. See, our needs won't ever be silent until we lose hope, but they are there. And those are basic things like food, shelter, and ironically, most people don't know this, but a sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I need to know. Somebody just said that's the greatest need. Yeah. I need to know that I belong in community, that I belong to someone. That's why the unit of family is so important. And so, sparks are happening here. And so here we are, here I am going, okay, needs, desires, legacy. Needs, desires, legacy. Needs are easy. Okay, but then there's desires, our wants, and then there's legacy. What on earth am I here for? And it's interesting because if any of you know who Rick Warren is, he wrote a book called Purpose Driven Life, or now it's rebranded What on Earth Am I Here For? It's the second best-selling book of all time behind the Bible. Why? Wow. Because everyone wants to know the answer to legacy. What am I here for? And it's crossed all boundaries. And what I happen to have the privilege of working as a business strategist on a project there at Saddleback Church, and what I know is that was a real deal download from God to people, that they could discover Him, and then when you discover Him, you discover what on earth am I here for? And so I was in that stage, but that desire thing was interesting too. Desires, your wants. So if I said to all of you, or to your kids or grandkids, okay, it's Christmas early, tomorrow's going to be Christmas, make a list of everything you want, and I'm going to bring it to you tomorrow. I'm not Oprah. But, would we be able to write a list? Yeah. Right? But if I said to you, okay, I want you to write down in 1 minute what on earth you're here for. So which would be harder, the want list or the what on earth am I here for? The legacy or want, which would be harder? Legacy. Everyone says that. But the truth is, I believe after working again with thousands, millions of people, if you count some media platforms, I saw a trend in people. And legacy, I think we bought the lie that legacy is hard. Yeah. Here's the definition of legacy: living beyond yourself on behalf of someone else. Every single one of you can live legacy today. You can hold open a door. Men in the room, Do you have any idea what happens in a woman's heart when you hold the door open for them? See, listen to them. Did you hear the little ripple,
Yep.
the nods? Like everyone.